many are still grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective podcast, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating and not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone and welcome to Adopt Perspective. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. One of the voices that we hear the least from on Adopt Perspective is that of fathers who lost children to adoption. It's a perspective that's vital but often left untold, and we're so deeply grateful whenever a father feels ready to step forward and share his experience. Today I'm honoured to be joined by Bill Esman, who is the father of Tracy Shand, a previous guest on our podcast. You might remember Tracy's story. We first spoke to her in July 2022 and again in April 2025. Bill only discovered that he had a daughter when Tracy reached out to him after taking a commercial DNA test. Their reconnection has been an extraordinary journey and one that we're privileged to explore a little further today. Bill, welcome to Adopt Perspective and thank you so much for being here.
I'm welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Bill, I want to begin just by saying again how much we appreciate your willingness to share your story today, because it takes a lot of courage to come out and speak about these experiences. What made you decide that now felt the right time to share your perspective?
Well, I think that talking to Tracy and Tracy wanting to tell her story was probably one of the impetus that made me go, well, I should. I mean, I've got nothing that I want to say except it's positive about her. So, yes, I'd like to support her in every way possible.
Thanks, Phil. When Tracy received her adoption records, she was given only a small amount of non-identifying information about you, and that's that you were Dutch, tall, studying aeronautical engineering, and your location at the time. And some of this information turned out to be different to what her mother had shared with her when they reunited. Would you mind taking us back to that time and helping us understand what life looked like for you back then?
Right. Well, when I first came to Australia, because my parents came out in 1955, and they ended up in Frankston, which most people have heard of, not the best area of Melbourne. But I went to a primary school. On the first day of primary school, my mother dressed me in a sailor suit, and I couldn't speak a word of English, and I was in a class of 55 students. So my life started pretty precariously when I first got to Australia. But over the years, especially when I moved to secondary school, things started to get a little bit easier. Joined a football club, cricket club, and got more into the culture that I'd been brought to. And then in 1962, we moved to Mount Eliza in Victoria. My father built a house in Mount Eliza, and Mount Eliza is one of those suburbs that's out of the general area of Melbourne. It's a lovely suburb. It's got a lovely beach there, where they filmed the movie on the beach. So it was an area where, you could pretty well do what you wanted. Going down to the beach was the summer activity for myself and other people in the area. And in 1967, thinking back, I was honoured with a place in the Australian Scout contingent to the World Jamboree in Idaho. Now, that might sound a little bit obscure with respect to what happened with Tracy, but the reality is that before then I was pretty shy. I was basically playing sport to try and meet people. And this trip to America just totally changed me. My mother said that after I came back, I was a totally different person because we were in America for 3 months, went to Idaho for the World Jamboree, and then afterwards we traveled around the East Coast and the middle of America, went to all the big places, Yosemite, Knott's Berry Farm, Las Vegas, And we even had a stint where we spent 2 weeks with a family in Long Beach, California. And all those factors sort of, like my mother said, changed me. I became a little bit more outgoing. So that when I came back in the summer of 67, I did spend a lot of time with my best friend, and we used to spend a lot of time down the beach. And subsequent to that, I met um, Tracy's mother. She was a nurse at the geriatric centre in Mount Eliza, and we met on the beach. And my friend Paul and I became acquainted with her and her friend. And yeah, one thing led to another. And I think for the both of us, it was the first time. And I think Tracy was conceived on the beach in
Yeah.
Mount Eliza,
How
which
old
I've
were
taken her
you
back to.
back then?
I was 16 and her mother was 18. So I don't think her mother realised I was only 16 because I was quite tall for my age. And
Hmm.
as I said, coming back from America and all the exposure I'd had to life in general, I think I was a little bit more mature than the average 16-year-old. So she just assumed that I was more her age. And
Yeah.
she also made a few assumptions about what I was going to do, which she, well, I wouldn't say she misled Tracy. I probably believe that she felt the same, that she felt that I was going to pursue a career in aeronautical engineering because that was what I'd planned to do, which didn't eventuate. But that's what she told Tracy in the end, that I was a university student at Melbourne University studying aeronautical engineering. And yes, so coming back to that summer, I was, we saw each other for a amount of time, and then all of a sudden she disappeared. And when she disappeared, one of the thoughts went through my head was that maybe she was pregnant. And that's why when Tracy contacted me the first time and told me what her mother's name was, I knew immediately that I was her father. So, I mean, that's jumping ahead a little bit. But yes, at the time I was still at school because I'd gone to America and really had a really great time and all that. I repeated the year of school because I left in August and came back about mid-September and really couldn't settle down to work anymore. So I was pretty scattered in terms of my thoughts. So yes, that's basically the summer that she was conceived. Don't know what else I
Um,
can say about that.
no, it was good. After your relationship ended, what direction did your life take then?
Well, I was really into sport. I was playing football in the juniors and the seniors, and I was playing cricket in the junior and the seniors, and I was doing very well at the sports I was playing. In fact, I was offered a position with Hawthorn Football Club, and I had to seriously think about that because playing football was what I really enjoyed doing. But the problem was back in those days, you didn't get paid to play football. And even though it was one of the Melbourne League clubs, I didn't know that I could focus because my record for the previous, since I came back from America was pretty um, difficult to, in fact, say I was committed to many things. So I thought, all right, I can play league football, but if I play league football, I won't get a university degree. And I really wanted to get a university degree. So I applied widely all around Australia that uh, December, and I received an offer to do photographic technology at RMIT. In fact, I did an entrance exam and got the top mark, and that was my plan at the time, to go and do photographic technology at RMIT. But I'd also received an offer from the education department in Victoria saying they'd pay for me to go to university. And on my way to RMIT to enroll in photographic technology, I stopped where the library is in Melbourne, and there was a phone box, and I rang the education department and said, if I was to do my degree interstate, would you still pay me to do the degree? And they said yes. And I turned around and went back home and packed my bags and went to the University of New England in New South Wales and got a degree there. So that was, or as I said, subsequent to Tracy's conception. But from there, went to university in New South Wales, did an honours degree at Armidale, came back to Melbourne, did teaching degree at Melbourne University, never planning to teach because it was never in my intentions to teach. I just thought this is a good way to get a university degree without having to pay for it. But came
Mhm.
back to Mount Eliza, where I'd come from, and went to Mount Eliza High School as my first school. And then from Mount Eliza High School, after teaching there for 5 years, I went over to Padua College, where I've been ever since, in Mornington, until the time when I got a text message from my niece who said that there's somebody that thinks I might be their father. And I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. Not sure what that was all about. But she said, can I send your I don't remember if it was the email address or my phone number to this person. I thought, yeah, okay. And when she sent me the email and mentioned her mother's name, I knew immediately that she was my daughter. So I just emailed her back, hi from your father. And that's when it all started.
Right.
A
It
few
it
days
must
later,
have been quite
she's
a shock, I think, at the time. Can you remember how you felt in those early moments?
it wasn't a shock because in the back of my mind, I'd always wondered about it. You know, when you
Yeah.
have this idea that just maybe, because her mother just disappeared. It wasn't as though she said goodbye. It wasn't as though I went to where she worked and she wasn't there anymore and there was no information whatsoever. So
Mm,
I was pretty, and I kept going back to where she worked a few times before I basically was involved with other things and wouldn't say lost interest, but I thought, oh, well, that's it. She's disappeared. Maybe she
yeah.
doesn't like me. Maybe something's gone wrong. And yes, as I said, in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe she is pregnant. And that was, yeah, that was what happened. So when she sent me the email and said her mother's name, I knew immediately, didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And then she said, oh, can we get together? And I said, yes. And she said, I'll bring the family down. And I said, no. I didn't really want to meet the whole family in one hit. So we organised to meet in Mordialloc and just one-on-one. And when she turned up, I thought, oh yeah, well, she doesn't have tattoos, she doesn't have piercings. I mean, she looks like a reasonable individual. I'll get to know her. And yes, it's progressed from then. She's a lovely person. She's intelligent. She's smart. She's caring. She's all the things that you'd really admire in your own daughter. And I did, and still do.
Yeah. So, did you tell your loved ones, your friends and family, immediately about Tracy when you heard about her?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And how did they respond?
Um, the they were all positive. Nobody actually said, oh, what have you done? Or, said anything negative. They were all positive, and the interesting thing is that she's the same age as my brother. So if I'd known that she'd been born, I would have been more than happy to raise her in the family. I would have done anything I needed to do to actually raise her as a daughter, and she would have had my brother as a sibling,
Mhm.
even though, he's my brother and she's my daughter. They're both the same age, so that was pretty coincidental.
Yeah. Many people talk about finding similarities when they reunite with their daughter or son or father or mother. What were some of the things that you noticed between you and Tracy in personality, looks, or even interests?
Um, I don't know so much it was the looks, but it was the when she talked, there was an immediate connection. It was as though we'd, been talking for years. There was no silences, there was no pregnant pauses. She was a bit put off by the fact that I kept looking at her because, I wanted to get to know everything about her. And she wasn't used to being it. She thought I was just staring at her, but I wasn't staring at her. I was trying to, rationalize everything. But the conversation went very easily, and I was a bit put off when she said, oh, I've got to go now. But later on, she told me that she was getting, she was very nervous and thought she didn't want to monopolize my time. Maybe I had something better to do, but I could have sat there and talked to her all night. Wouldn't have been a problem at all. So
Yeah.
that connection was there straight away. And it was like as though we'd always, been friends or we'd always known each other. It wasn't a case of getting to know her at all. I mean, I was interested in her past and she told me her history and I talked about my history, but the reality was it was just very easy to talk to her as it is today.
Mhm. There is something, having spoken to you both, there is something very similar about talking to you. I don't know exactly what it is, whether it's a mannerism or something or the way you look. But I definitely see some kind of similarity there.
Yeah, I think we think very similarly. And even though she's gone down a different path, she went down a science path. And like I'm teaching at a Catholic school. She was a pastor for a while, and she did biomed at university, and I did science, an honours degree in science at university. We're both keen on helping people. I think we're both very, how shall we say, empathetic, sometimes, to our detriment. We see the pain in other people, and when people are not feeling top of the world, we can pick it up and we feel their pain. So, I mean, things like that, they all combine to give this overall similarity, I think, between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite surprised at the connection we have, for example, with music. We both love music, put it that way. And we both like similar sorts of music, which is interesting. No, I was just trying to think. Yeah, I think our perspective on life's very similar too.
Mm.
But yes, our love of music is something that really connects us to a high level, I think.
Yeah. It's funny, the little things. I had my father at my house recently. He stayed the night, and there was a moment where we were talking about how our writing was similar, and we both reached across the table and put our hands together and realized that our hands are exactly the same.
Right.
Same shaped fingers, same size hand, everything was just ridiculous. I often wonder where I got my manny hands from. But and it's just those little identifying things, I know, for adopted person mean everything, like those connections when you've grown up without that similarity. So it's interesting to hear about it from your side and what it meant to you as well. So just 2 weeks after meeting Tracy, you asked to be added to her pre-adoptive birth certificate, and it's something she's since been able to do. Could you tell us why that was important to you?
Well, I mean, she's my daughter, so to me that's important. I'd always wanted to have a daughter, even when I went to Europe in 1982 with my girlfriend at the time, who I subsequently married. I came back from Europe with these two little cute dresses that I bought in Vienna that were for baby, always imagining I'd have a daughter. But when my son was born, my wife basically said, "You can't do that to me again." So that was the end of that tale. So part of me always wanted to have a daughter. And when my wife was pregnant, we decided that she could name it if it was a son and I would name it if it was a daughter. So that's how invested I was in having a daughter. And then bingo, I got one a little bit late in life, but it did happen. But yes, so I'd always wanted a daughter, and I think that if I'd brought her up, she would probably still be the special person she is now, but I would have got to share some of the highlights of her life, which I've missed out on.
Yeah, that history, it's something that you can't put back together. You can't sort of put together what was lost, but you can build from now.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
And we do get on very well. We seem to be very compatible in so many different areas, so that's great.
So Tracy's now taken the step of discharging her adoption, which for anyone listening is essentially reversing her adoption and legally reinstating you as her father. How did you feel when she made that decision?
I'm fully okay with it. I mean, I appreciate the pain that she went through, and in some ways, I really feel cheated in not getting the time with her when she was young, because I've seen some videos of when she was young and she was cute and she was special and all those sorts of things, and I've missed out on all that. But she's still special even at the age she is now. And sometimes, I mean, when we're together, it's almost like we're both 17 again, because there are certain levels at which we communicate in a way that I don't think other people do, just because we are related. So that's pretty special. So having me on her birth certificate, I'm fully okay with that. I know that her birth mother's probably a little more hesitant about everything, but I can appreciate that as well. Like she left for reasons that at those times, like I was underage and she was overage, and maybe she was concerned about that. Maybe she felt that I was too young to bring up a child, but whatever the reasons, I've still got plenty of years left in me, and hopefully I can share some happy memories that I didn't get to share when she was young.
Yeah. Did it
And I
mean
got instant
anything?
grandkids.
Yes, absolutely. So you've been able to form a relationship with them?
I think so, yes. Emily, Rachel, and Matt, they all have been here, and I've went to Matt's wedding in Brazil last year, so I took time off school to go to his wedding. And Rachel's a primary school teacher, so some of the genes have rubbed off on her. And Emily's a lovely girl, and she's doing a university degree in nursing. So yes, they're all fabulous. So it's great to be able to share some time with them as well. And I got to go to Rachel's 21st, which was special as well. So yes, there are memories that I'm building now, even though it might have come late into the game in terms of having grandchildren.
Bill, look, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and for trusting us with it and allowing our listeners what is really an all too rare and important glimpse into the experience of fathers who are impacted by adoption. So thank you so much.
That's fine. No other questions?
No, did you have anything else you wanted to share before we sign off?
Oh, well, I suppose part of me is curious about how the future goes, given that I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore, but I'm hoping that the many years ahead are going to be as happy for me as for her as they are for me. Because every time I see her, I feel really warm inside and special, and she makes me feel that way, and I hope I make her feel that way too, because she's a very special person,
I love
and she's
that.
doing a lot of good for people in our community. So yes, I'm very proud of her, and very happy with the fact that she reconnected, and only wish it had been done earlier, but nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
But hopefully the future will have many happy occasions and years ahead for both of us.
Thanks, Bill. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. And if you've got a story that you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you. You can find the prospective guest form on the main podcast page of the Jigsaw Queensland website. And just remember that Adopt Perspective is and can be listened to by people all over the world. And every story helps others feel seen, heard, and understood. So until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.